Hey everyone, welcome back to this channel. Another installment of Revolutions, the diary of my spins, records that I've been playing, enjoying, rediscovering, all of the above. Please have this conversation, this running conversation with me in the comment. I really appreciate and I always respond best I can. I'm going to start because I don't want to waste my time in a lot of blah blah at the start. And I'm going to start as usual with some classical music. Um, and For instance, I was revisiting this beautiful Schubert quartet, Melos Quartet Stuttgart, two-string quartet, Death and the Maiden, which is just, it's got very dark, meditative undertones. It's not really a light string quartet, it's a very sort of brooding in nature. It was a gift from Anders in Stockholm, my good friend Anders Allen, who I speak to on a regular basis, and he sent this to me like a year ago. So thank you again, and I really appreciate. Likewise, another Deutsche Grammophon beauty here. I was playing a lot recently. Is these Chopin Nocturne by Jan Lisicki, young German pianist. Dreamy. It's a real dreamscape. This thing, dreamy, and this lead you to contemplation. These really, like, if you've heard this before. This Nocturne, very delicately played. I'm not an expert on piano. Some people would be able to tell you the difference between the touch of one. I really can't, because I'm not gonna lie, but this I find beautiful personally. Um, here is a composer that nobody really speaks about, John Luther Adams. The light that fills the void, I think. The light that fills the world, excuse me. He's a minimalist, or in fact totalist composer who lives in Alaska, and he's very, very much inspired by the landscapes, the desolation of the Alaskan landscape. This is a gorgeous kind of Steve Reich, Max Richter, Johan Johansson-esque piece, which I would highly recommend. It's magical. The piano just it envelopes this kind of, I've played this a few times this week, and it just blows my mind how all encompassing this thing is. It's fantastic. Here is a piece that it's a classic of modern classical, Enrico Recchi, Symphony Number 3, Symphony of Sorrowful Songs, which was recently redone with Beth Gibbons on vocals, even though she's not trained for this. Did a good job, I think. But this is the OG of the pick of the bunch, Dawn Upshaw on soprano and the London Sinfonietta. Everybody should own this, really. It's deeply spiritual music, but on a sort of chamber classical orchestra with a high flying soprano. This just gives you chills. This morning, Saturday morning, I was playing this fantastic rendition of the Concierto de Aranjuez by Joaquim Rodrigo, with the master of the flamenco guitar, of the classical guitar, Narciso Yepes, who is the equivalent of a Miroslav Rostropovich or a Yehudi Menuhin or a Daniel Barenboim on his instruments. This is superb, sublime music, and I'm going to do a segue right now on flamenco to sort of Latin American or Spanish music. So, I thought I'll just link them to. So recently I pulled this out. I bought this when I was in Sevilla in Spain about 4 years ago, and I think that's the only record I bought in Sevilla. I went to a couple of record stores and I couldn't find anything that I really wanted. But I found this Jordi Sabates, Ocels del Mes Enya. Something to do with birds. Ocels is birds. Birds on... Not Birds on Fire, because it's Mahavishnu Orchestra. But you get the idea with Mahavishnu Orchestra here. It's kind of like a Mahavishnu meets Soft Machine meets flamenco. It's got a lot of like just really gorgeous flamenco element on this. It's a progressive rock record, obviously from Barcelona, and in fact, this is in Catalonian, the language there. It's not Spanish. From 1975, I think, or there was 76, I think. Great record. If you like Weather Report and Soft Machine, if you can imagine them being Spanish, then that's where you get there. This is Latin America, obviously, or Central America, in fact, not progressive rock record, obviously, but not kind of a progressive record. This is Via Lactea, which is a project featuring Jorge George Reyes, who is known, for making these ambient, atmospheric, progressive electronic records. There's one with the Mexican pyramids on the front cover. I can't remember the title of the album, but you can work it out yourself. Mexico Cosmico, which is also fantastic. This is kind of like a Helden record with a Mexican twist, in part very trippy ambient, and in other parts more sort of like it's got little bursts of random noises as well happening on this. This was a Chris Cole recommendation, and I couldn't buy an original of this. So the two in Australia you can't find them, and they're too expensive. This is a Wah repress, which suits me pretty well. They've even redone the foil cover. Nothing wrong with this. I'm very happy with that repress. But if you like something like, if you're into Heldon, for example, and you want to get into that kind of sound, it's fantastic. But in a completely different style, this is from Argentina. I've been talking about Ramble Records a lot, Melbourne label, Ramble Record, which I'll probably do a feature on eventually. This is Lujo Asiático. It's called After Ashram. This is a fabulous ambient record. Lujo Asiático is a three-piece who they all play synth and samples. So you got this kind of backdrop of atmospheric music. But here they augmented with a sitar, a sax, vocals, and piano. And so you've got a sort of like ambient, but meets Hindustani and jazz record. I highly recommend you go on Bandcamp and you take a listen to After Ashram by Lujo Asiático to get an idea of the sound, because me describing it here probably not doing the biggest justice to it. Okay, I'm going to do a little rock segue now, sort of indie rock segue. I've been playing a lot of slowcore and post-rock and dream pop recently, and these are some of the records that I've been pulling out. The Sea and Cake, post-rock classic Biz, the band from Chicago on Thrill Jockey. If you like Tortoise, you should absolutely get into the Sea and Cake, the band led by Sam Prekop. I've got his solo records as well, which are also really interesting. But after Nassau, it probably is the second best Sea and Cake from the 90s. Very, very, very lovely record. I love his vocals too. Fantastic. I've been revisiting records, just two records by this band called Hood. This is the classic Cold House here. That's an absolutely classic, because it's kind of weird records now. And this is the EP Home is where it hurts. Hood is kind of a post-rock band, but with a twist. I'd say there's elements of electronica, of indie folk, and of slowcore in there, just chucked in there. It's not, I don't know what genre it is. It's indie rock, I know, but I would recommend that you take a listen to this EP, and I will give you a good idea, because it goes from things like, a little bit of Tortoise soundscape to a more like sort of a Songs of Higher type of affair. So you've got a bit of everything. Hood Um, again, this is a record that you could include in a slowcore video, although this is more like a dream pop album. Mojave 3, Ask Me Tomorrow. Ask Me Tomorrow. That's a gorgeous record. I mean, oh my god, this is again like if you can mesh something like Calexico, Galaxy 500 low, and Jason Molina, if you can mesh them into a blender, you get this album. It's a very dream pop. Yeah, it's got a very, the female vocals give it a very low kind of vibe as well. This is absolutely gorgeous. If you've never heard this album, just, please take a listen to Mojave 3. Lovely, lovely, lovely. And because these have been reissued recently, I pulled this out because I haven't played for a while. The Night by Morphine. All my Morphine except for Cure for Pain is on CD because they came out on CD. Putting them on vinyl, I don't know. Is it a good idea? I don't know. It's more the fetishist side of vinyl collecting that says, oh, you need to have this in vinyl. This here, if I want to buy a copy of this here in Australia, it's $120 for a reissue. Fuck that. I'm not buying it. My CD will suffice. After Cure for Pain and Good, I think this is the third best Morphine album. I really do think that. And because they're doing something slightly different, they've gone from a 3-piece to being like a 4-piece on some tracks, and it really is an interesting record. Now also deep into slowcore again. Dom was talking about this album being more representative of the Duster sound than the one I showed, and so I mean, look, with Dom, I can agree that this is a very, very, strong representation of the Duster sound. I don't know if it's, which one of these two albums is the best one. But for me, in my Gimme 10, I wanted to spotlight that one album. This is also fantastic contemporary movement. So I also highly recommend. And so did Dom in his follow-up video. I pulled out this amazing album by Low. I was talking about Low a second ago. Trust. The first 3 songs on this. That's How You Sing, Amazing Grace, Canada, and Candy Girl. I think they could be the best 3 opening songs of any Low album. Trust. Amazing, amazing record. Yes. And here is an album that I was making my slowcore video, something that, you could toy including in, but it's not really a slowcore album. It is the album by, it's the last album by Songs of Higher under the name Songs of Higher. Well, actually, it's the first album under the new name, the Magnolia Electric Company, which is basically Songs of High. I mean, Jason Molina just had this idea to rename the project because he was moving in a different sound direction, and it is a different sound direction. This album is a 10 out of 10 masterpiece. This album is an absolute, gosh, every song on this is, I mean, it's a perfect record, really. I mean, in every possible way. But it's not a slowcore album. It's an alt folk, old country album, indie folk. I mean, everything. The design, the artwork, the songwriting, the heartbreak in this. Like the first 3 or 4 songs are just so amazing. I mean, I'm particularly in love with the 3rd song on the album, which was titled, just eludes me right now. But in any case, you can check this out, the Magnolia Electric Company. And I'm going to close this rock bracket with a couple of... Okay, this is a local release, which I want to spotlight. This is a record that's sort of blind bought at a local store a couple of months ago, I think. This is from a shop called Lulu. There's a shop called Lulu in Melbourne. It's in Thornbury. And they've got this thing called the Lulu Sonic disc club, and they've released their own records. And this is a band from Sydney. They're called Eternal Dust, and the album is called Spiritual Healers, Defense Lawyers. Just a quick summary of this band, because I think they need a big prop. They're kind of like a Cocteau Twins meets The Cure meets Japan kind of a band. It's this kind of sound is just, they're a fantastic sort of dream pop, goth dream pop band, and this is their first record. I think amazing from this year. I love this record. I've played a ton. Okay, now I'm going to offend people. This is the segment called Fred offends people. This came out in 2003, and this is I think a near original. I think I bought it around that time from the UK. And I saw that it was repressed on UHQR, whatever, in a box. They're charging like $200 for it. How gullible are people? I just want to, on a scale from 1 to 10, how gullible are you? If you're an audiophile and you've gone and you bought this, or you can buy this anywhere, any day of the week, and it already sounds really good, then I'm sorry, but you've lost me. Like, there are some very savvy business people there who know that there is a deep sense of FOMO amongst the audiophile community, and you have to have this, and they repress the same fucking boring records over and over and over again. I mean, I don't understand, why you would need like 10 copies of Hotel California or 10 copies of Dark Side of the Moon. I don't understand it. Maybe somebody can explain to me the mindset, but I'd rather have a breadth of records that that expose me to different sounds and different ideas, rather than to listen to the same record. It's a bit like eating the same meal like five days a week. I mean, yes, you won't die because you'll be nourished, but come on, people. This is probably the most original new thing that they've put out, but don't fall for it, people. Great album. Ball and Biscuits, Hardest Button to Button, and Little Acorns. Side 3 is my favorite side by far. I considered over the year parting with this, but I still quite like it, actually. I'm not gonna lie, it's quite a good album. But come on, seriously. I am going to continue. If you're still subscribed, I'll continue. I'm going to continue with an Australian jazz segment and then a jazz segment. We'll finish off with this. I went into my Australian jazz section, and as you know, I'm a fan. I live here in Melbourne, and I've been collecting this stuff for years and years. I've pulled out my copy of the classic Colours by the Julie Bailey Quartet. She's a New Zealand pianist, composer, but we claim her as our own in Australia. This I've told the story before. Is a very lucky find at the time. I went in my local record store, and they had this copy, mint copy, this one for $12, and I thought that zero was missing at the end. So I went to the desk with like a big pile of records, hoping that they would notice, and they didn't, because they didn't know what it was. So but this is a great record, very funky, modal, funky jazz record from Australia. The drums are amazing on this. Her electric piano playing is top notch. If you want a classic of the Australian jazz scene, another one here, this one is a reissue, as you can see, is the great Yarandu by Rob Tomset, which is a jazz fusion record, sort of in a vein of a Mahavishnu kind of, with a more sort of psychedelic side to it, and also a distinct kind of like Australian Aboriginal kind of sort of feel to the music. This was reissued on Round Table many years ago, and I bought this 2000 and I don't know, a long time ago, 2014 or something. And this came out in 1975 in Canberra. The only problem with this record is too short, but if you like jazz fusion, I think you'd love that record. A little spotlight about one one of my favorite Australian bands, and they're about to release a really, really great record in a few weeks, and I wanna spotlight them for a second. And this band is the fabulous Godtet. So Godtet, this is the first trilogy of record. Godtet 1, Godtet, sorry, 2, and Godtet number 3. Okay, so this is kind of a trilogy. I first got to them on the first record on the strength of the beautiful abstract expressionist cover and the hype sticker from Plug 7, which is one of my favorite shops. And so I bought this, and they're a group from Sydney, and they're led by a guy called Godriguez, who's on guitar and synth. And their brand of jazz is not dissimilar to what's happening in the UK or on the international anthem scene at the moment. Very sort of new jazz. They mix electronics and jazz and traditional jazz together, and their approach is very much like that of sort of new jazz and new, like this kind of blend between those two genres. And I've been playing those records heaps recently, and my favorite one of the bunch is Godted 2 because it's a bit more electronic, and so the new record is coming out soon. I just wanted to spotlight them. Love Godted, and I haven't seen them live, but I hope to see them live in future. Here is a very little known private press Australian jazz album that I hadn't played for ages. It's by James Gilligan, and the record's called For a Sita. I'll show you on the label there. There we go. For a Sita is the name of the record. Astoundingly enough, there are still copies on his band. This is from 2013. There are still copies of this record on his Bandcamp you can buy. It's a beautiful ECM-like. He's a bass player, so it's very sort of bass driven, but it's got a very icy, dark quality, like the cover. And I'm going to talk about another ECM bass player in a second, so which you could relate it to. I love this. It's just take a listen. For a Sita by James Gilligan. I pulled out this. This is not Australian jazz. It's New Zealand jazz. See, the label is there, and you can tell straight away. From 2020, it's the Virtual Shadow Ensemble, and this is called Keep Your Distance. It's a nod to, well, the pandemic, Keep Your Distance, and reminds me a lot. It's spiritual jazz with spoken word vocals. It reminds me a lot of Irreversible Entanglements, the international anthem band. If that's your thing, then you probably like this. I revisited it. Bought it during the lockdown. Bought lots of records during lockdown. Finally, a last little jazz segment. Here is a classic Canterbury prog jazz rock record, Quiet Sun, with the album Mainstream, which is an album that is a project by Charles Hayward from This Heat, obviously before This Heat. Phil Manzanera from Roxy Music, and you've got Brian Eno there on this. And I love that he's on treatments, synth treatment and oblique strategies, of course. Why wouldn't you be on oblique strategies? This is a fantastic Canterbury prog Zolo jazz rock record, and I love the opener of side 2. Mummy was an asteroid. Daddy was a small non-stick kitchen utensil. Listen to that track. This Norwegian or Danish? Norwegian, Danish. I can't remember. It's Norwegian. It's from Oslo. It's from 1976. It's called the band's called Vanessa. The album's called Black and White. It's an experimental jazz record that came out in Norway back in the day, and was reissued last year by Roundtable Record, which is my local label from Melbourne. And I tend to grab a lot of stuff that they've reissued because I think they're. I mean, James Pianta has got a killer record collection, and he knows his shit. So I some often buy with confidence. I knew of this record, but it's not something that you would ever see in the wild. So it's beautifully done reissue. If you like, it's European jazz with a more sort of experimental bent. I think it would appeal to some people. Um, I was talking about ECM bass player. I was talking about James Gilligan, and I think the James Gilligan record reminds me a lot of Barry Phillips, and I pulled that 3-Day Moon, which I hadn't played forever and ever and ever. It's not an album that you see very often on these vinyl videos. You tend to see more different kind of, but this has got Serge Ribdo on guitar and synth, and plus a couple of players who I don't really know very well, but there's a tabla player there. 1978 ECM. It's gorgeous, dark, nocturnal type of record. Plays great at night. I had my friend Amos here the other day, and we were talking about Japanese jazz, and we made me pull that. This Kosuke Mine, and the album is called First. Kosuke Mine, there he is. He's a tenor sax player. What can I say about this other than it's modal jazz? It's very, very high grade modal jazz. If you like Coltrane, if you like, McCoy Tyner, if you like those kinds of, if you like Joe Henderson, you probably like this. Okay. This is a J Jazz reissue on BB, barely breaking even. Great label. And I'll finish off with a couple. One that I hadn't played for ages and ages. I pulled it out of my shelf. Polish Jazz Sunship. Again, kind of like modal jazz fusion. Just lots of when he plays the band leader here plays piano, electric piano, polymoog and harp, just to give you an idea of the sort of sounds you would get. Again, like Weather Report, but with a more modal jazz kind of approach, I guess. Follow Us, and original Polish pressing, obviously very, very good. And the last one is a record that I've spoken about before, and I it's nothing. I don't think it's anything essential per se. This is the Ensemble Minizime, French band. I think they're from Lyon in France, or thereabouts. They're from that sort of side. And the album is called Moondog New Sound. As the name indicates, it's a tribute to the music of Moondog, who you all know Moondog. I don't need to talk about Moondog, the Viking of 54th Avenue or whatever, 56th Avenue, whatever he was, and their neoclassical chamber classical ensemble with guitars, violin, harmoniums, drums, hurdy-gurdy, cello, and viola. And they reinterpret the songs of Moondog in a sort of neoclassical kind of way, and it's beautiful. And that came out again, another lockdown records that I bought, And there we go. Hope you enjoy this installment. Lots of records, lots of music to delve into. Thank you for your support. Don't be offended by my audiophile rant. It's how I feel. I love you all. Take care.